Hi there. Thank you for spending part of your lunch hour with the library. I actually am thrilled to see actual people that aren't just my colleagues. I hope that this becomes a very valuable 30 minutes for you. How many of you are classroom teachers? Excellent. How many of you are school librarians? How many of you have a teacher in your life that you cannot wait to tell them awesome things about the library and its resources? And how many of you are just resting your feet? It's all good, it's all right, everybody has a good answer. So again, like George said, I'm Leanne, and I direct an office at the library that is called Professional Learning and Outreach Initiatives. And for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm gonna introduce you to a wide variety of opportunities that exist to really engage with the library and hopefully not just for yourself, for your students, and for others. The library really is a terrific place to learn. And because I am a classroom teacher at heart, we are going to start by sort of a raise of hands. How many of you have ever been to the Library of Congress? How many of you have been to the book festival before? How many of you have ever been to a workshop at the library? Ooh, so I got some recruiting to do. This is good. Excellent. Raise your hand if you'd like to learn new things. Okay, I'm going to wait till everybody's hand goes up because you're at the book festival. All right, everybody in the room loves to learn new things, and I am really glad. So now you're going to think about the things you like to learn. Think deeply, and then tell me, what is it that inspires you to learn? Just think about it for a minute. You don't have to shout out anything unless you feel, inspired to. See how I did that? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead and shout things out. What inspires you to learn? My husband would say YouTube. and then I would dig into that a little bit, and he would say, well, actually, experts on YouTube, especially when they're working on cars. I'd be like, good answer. What else inspires you to learn? Books do. Excellent answer. Yeah. People passionate about a subject, right? Whether they write a book or whether they just tell you about it. What other things? And by the way, I'm a good teacher, so I've got answers to come. So you can tell me if I'm wrong. How about that? So are you inspired by an interest in a subject? Of course you are. Are you inspired by something that captures your attention? Of course you are. Are you inspired by the enthusiasm of others? That's what I'm trying and working on here. See, I'm drumming up your enthusiasm. By the end of this, you guys are going to be dancing in the hallways, right? See, I've got you laughing. This is good. How about the expertise of others? Yeah, that does it. The desire to become an expert. Things that are relevant to your life, to the lives of the people in your life that you care about. Or maybe your own curiosity, just something kind of piques your interest, or maybe it's the element of surprise. Maybe you see something, you're like, wow, I never knew that. And then you want to dig in and learn more. And sometimes we have a desire for success, and that's why we learn. So we are inspired by a lot of different things. And I will argue that by the end of this session, if I ask this question again, your answer might be, what inspires you to learn? Why, the Library of Congress does, especially if you give me the caveat that says, what cultural institution, government agency, or largest library in the world inspires you to learn? And with this, I want to point out something. Have you ever looked at the very, very top of the Thomas Jefferson Building? You know what's at the very, very top? You see it a bunch here at the Book Festival, by the way. We've got some great images of that torch. And that torch that's on the top of the Jefferson Building is the torch of knowledge, or it's the torch of learning. And symbolically, we know that when we know something and we share what we know from someone else, it doesn't make our knowledge deplete. It actually makes that flame grow brighter. And that's why that flame of knowledge on the top of the library is so relevant to this conversation about inspiring learning with the Library of Congress. So what I'm going to tell you about are publications, as well as events and networks that can connect you to the library and potentially inspire your own learning or inspire learning among people that meet you. And everything that we do has it at its core the primary source materials that are in the library's collections. How many of you are familiar with collections in the library's collections? All right, does anybody have a favorite thing? Prints and photographs, good answer. Anybody else have a favorite? Anybody have a thing for old maps? Anybody get super excited when I say things like Rosa Parks' recipe for pancakes? It's in the collections. And if you come down to our booth downstairs, we're actually handing out copies of that. And they're really good, by the way. The collections in the library's holdings come in a huge variety of media. And the examples that I have on the screen are just a few of them. Things like photographs and posters and prints. There are materials in our manuscript collection that are often quite surprising. One of the objects on the screen is actually a receipt that comes from the Frederick Law Olmsted Papers, and it's the receipt for his membership in the New York Horticultural Society. And what was really fun about that, remember back to that list of what inspires you? Things like that inspire me, because I'm like, oh wow, that's so cool. So Frederick Law Olmsted was a member of the New York Horticultural Society. I wonder what professional associations Alexander Graham Bell belonged to. I wonder what membership cards might be in the Rosa Parks papers. I wonder what materials I might stumble on if I go looking for receipts in the library's collections. And then I start finding the nuttiest things. So often it's a collection item that inspires our learning. It's something that makes us want to dig in and find out more. Maybe it's sheet music. We had a science teacher working with us a few years ago who was a musician and who was a science teacher, but it never occurred to her that there might be sheet music about the elements of the periodic table. And you're thinking to yourselves, well, that's just weird, but there they are. People have written songs about the elements in the periodic table, and if you don't believe me, go to the library's website, do a search on radium. People wrote music about it. It's nutty. It's nutty, great stuff, but finding those connections between objects in the collections that you don't expect to find may actually be the things that inspire your students to want to learn more because they're nutty or strange or curious or whatever the case may be. Maybe it's children's books, maybe it's maps, maybe it's something like an illustrated, or perhaps we call them illuminated, manuscripts from the 13th century if you teach 6-year-olds. Like this photograph, which really is a 6-year-old at a school in Los Angeles whose teacher did this amazing activity involving illuminated manuscripts from the 13th century. As a way of helping students, he was trying to teach his kids the format he'd like them to use on the papers that they turn in, and he decided to use illuminated manuscripts to illustrate to students what the format of a paper could look like. And needless to say, these kids were really into this exercise. I want to tell you a little bit about the publications that are available that highlight many of these collection objects, as well as suggestions on how these might be incorporated into classroom instruction or just into independent research. So one of the things is on the library's website, we have a section specifically for educators. That is loc.gov/teachers. We fondly refer to it as our teachers page. Have any of you ever stumbled on the teachers page of the library's website? How many of you will, after today, stumble on the teachers page of the library's website? Yes, please do. Not only can you find primary sources and primary source sets, keep in mind, by the way, there are something like 38 million digitized collection objects available on the library's website right now. And I know how much time classroom teachers have, and you do not have enough time to go through 38 million digitized items. And that's one of the things we try to do on our teachers page, is whittle down collections to something maybe a little bit more manageable, and then tell you how we got there. So that if what we've identified isn't exactly what you're looking for, we're giving you some suggestions on how you might find exactly what it is you're looking for. So the teachers page not only has approaches to getting started with teaching with primary sources and primary source sets, but we also have some professional development opportunities. I mentioned earlier, I asked if any of you had ever participated in a workshop at the library. We also have those workshops online these days. So we're doing a whole lot more in the webinar world, and lots of those recordings are also available on the library's website, and that's in that professional development section of the site. The other thing, I want to point out two other things. Let me go back. One other thing I want to show you here. So On our main teachers page, there's a link to a blog, and that's what I want to talk about next. So how many of you subscribe to at least one of the 21 blogs that the Library of Congress writes? Okay, one of you. All right, let me tell you about this. You know how you get a lot of mail in your email box that you just sort of delete? These are things you wouldn't want to delete. So if you subscribe to one of the library's blogs, and you can subscribe to all 21 if you really want to, and you've got all time in the world, you can. But if you subscribe to some select ones, like maybe the Teaching with the Library of Congress blog, or maybe you're really into copyright and you want frequent updates from the Copyright Office, or maybe you're really into prints and photographs. So these different blogs are managed by different offices around the library, and each one of them sort of has a different goal and a different focus, but every single one of them will provide information about areas of interest to you. And I really encourage you to check out all of those blogs and kind of get a sense of what's there, and then pick and choose and get some good email once in a while. In addition to the ones that are here, there are these as well. And the newest one, or I should say one of the newest ones, I think there's another new one, but one of the newest ones is called Minerva's Kaleidoscope, and it is specifically for families. So the target audience is sort of parents of young people, and there are suggestions and ideas about how you can connect with the library, for family purposes. So in addition to the teachers page, and in addition to our blogs, we also, in my office, we write regular articles for professional journals, because we know that not every educator automatically knows that the library has resources for educators. So we try to meet teachers where they already are, and in many cases, that's with the professional associations that they are members of. So right now, we write regular features for the journals of the for NAFME, the National Association for Music Education, as well as Social Education, the Journal of the National Council for the Social Studies, and for NSTA, the National Science Teaching Association. And what we do in those articles is highlight items from the collections and suggest approaches that teachers might use to incorporating those materials into their classroom. In addition to the publications, there are lots of events, in addition to the book festival, that you can participate in. If you go to loc.gov/events, you can see the calendar of events. So these are items that are not only in person, and I'll talk about the online in just a second, but you can find out about concerts that our music division puts on. You can find out about courses and workshops that are offered across the library by various divisions. You can find out about exhibits and tours and film screenings, lectures, symposia, and more. If you go to the teachers page and you select the professional development link, that's where you're going to find information about workshops that we do on site, including summer teacher institutes. And, if you go back to that events page, you can also, actually, I know what I did on this. There's a link on that events calendar page to just online programming. I'll show you that in just a minute. But I want to show you something kind of fun. So I mentioned in-person programming. And a number of years ago, for years, we do an open house for educators on one of the days of our Summer Teacher Institute. And on that day, we invite colleagues from all over the library to basically do amazing show and tell for our teachers and get them excited about objects in the collections. And at the end of the day, we do these exit cards where we ask them to either what was the highlight of the day? What was the thing you learned? What was the thing that really is going to resonate? What's the thing you're going to tell your family about tonight? And this particular teacher decided to, instead of writing down what it was she was going to describe, she drew it for us. And every time I look at this, I just love it, because that's what I wish would happen to everybody who comes to the library. Is she comes into the library thinking, oh, Library of Congress, library, books, they must have a lot. And we do, the largest collection in the world. But she left at the end of that day understanding that the library was a whole lot more than books. And her little stick figure says outreach, braille, poems, map, freebies, sound, movie recording. I mean, she had it all. She absolutely got it. And her sense of the place had changed pretty dramatically. And that's when we know we're doing it right, because the library really is a complicated and exciting place with all kinds of opportunity and resources. So here's where you can find it. So if you're on that events page and you scroll all the way down on the left-hand side, you can click online only and access all of the programming that the library makes available at a distance. So if you're not from the DC area, or you're not interested in going to Capitol Hill on a Thursday night, you can still participate in programming from the library, from the comfort of your own home and your own slippers. Or if you can't make it real time, we are literally up to, like, I don't know. I did this last week, so I can tell you. Last week, when I did this search on online recordings of events at the Library of Congress, I got 6,926 events. And there was a little jaw dropping just then. That was really good, you guys. That was awesome. Cool. Yeah, and the events are mind blowing. When the library acquired, bought, got, I don't even know what the right answer is, but years ago, the library acquired an original copy of Galileo's Starry Messenger. Okay? We're talking world-changing, right? And the library did a symposium about why that item was so earth-changing. And I have to say, that recording of that symposium, if every kid in the world could watch the first 5 minutes of that symposium, they would turn into astronomers like that, because it's just so good. It's a scientist talking about what changes the way we think about the planet we live on. I mean, it's just brilliant. So there's lots of terrific recordings, and I encourage you to check them out. And again, all you do is go to loc.gov, and in that very, very top box where you can search, if you narrow your search to films and videos and leave the box blank, and then once it comes up with like 12,000 things, zoom over to the side and select Library of Congress events, and that's how you're going to get the 6,000 some odd. So it's very easy to find them. And if you're not willing to wade through 6,000 some odd things, you can narrow by the name of an author. You know David McCullough was at the book festival a number of years ago. Search on him. You'll find all of those recordings. You know that you're interested in astronomy. Type in astronomy. You're going to find everything that the library's ever presented on astronomy that somebody put astronomy in the metadata for. In addition to publications and events, there are ways of working with the library that we often refer to as our networks. And one of our networks is our Teaching with Primary Sources Teachers Network. And again, half of you said you were classroom teachers, so I hope you are familiar with our Teaching with Primary Sources program, including the grants that we make available, and perhaps our Teaching with the Library of Congress Teachers Network. So this, tpsteachersnetwork.org, is actually a website that has been developed by one of our Teaching with Primary Sources partners. And it's a community online of teachers who love to teach with primary sources. And often we use it when we're doing workshops and we want to provide materials in advance of the workshop. We'll ask teachers to set up accounts in the network so that we can create a community and share those resources. But it doesn't have to work that way. You can just go on the site, log in, create a little account, and start exploring. We've got groups of teachers all over the country, and we've got a couple of groups right now. We've got one, they call themselves a consortium interest group, which sort of makes me laugh because it's like SIG. That just doesn't sound right, you know, and maybe, I don't know. But they're coming together on topics that are really interesting to them. So we've got a group right now that's really interested in primary sources that are helping teach about social justice issues. So they've got a social justice consortium interest group. We've got a group that's really interested in rural education right now. There are a lot of communities in the country, as you well know, that are struggling to get teachers to fill positions in some very rural communities. And this group of teachers is working together on some pretty interesting curriculum development and some networking with one another that we think is going to make a big difference. We've got one of our consortium interest groups that's interested in science, which we love. We love seeing that there really are science teachers out there recognizing that primary sources are not just for the history classroom or the English language arts classroom for that matter, but really across the curriculum and across the grade spectrum. So check out the TPS Teachers Network. And you can also find out information about grants that are available, about our regional grants, about Summer Teacher Institute programming, all kinds of stuff through there, as well as through our teachers page. I've mentioned a couple of times that we had a teacher working with us one year, blah, blah, blah. Well, we've got a teacher in residence program, and that really does allow classroom teachers to work with us for the course of a school year. We basically enter into a contract with their school district, and instead of reporting to their campus, they report to our campus for a school year, and they help us dig up resources and promote them to educators of particular disciplines that we're trying to target. This year we are working with a middle school history teacher, and we're also working with a high school biology teacher. And our high school biology teacher is also an Einstein Fellow, and if any of you are familiar with the Department of Energy's Albert Einstein Distinguished Educator Fellowship Program, that's the program I'm talking about, and she's dynamite, and we are really excited again to be working with a science teacher who gets as goofy and giddy and excited about primary sources as we do. We think she's going to do some pretty terrific things. In fact, early when they come, we try to dazzle and amaze them so that they feel really lucky to be at the library. So last week, I took her over to the rare book collection, and I asked a colleague over there if he could do a little show and tell for her. And needless to say, all I had to do was tell him she was a biology teacher. Do you guys know who Robert Hooke was? Do you remember learning the cell theory in 8th grade? Okay, well, you did. And you learned about Robert Hooke, and you learned about cells. And this was the guy who used a microscope and looked at cork and said, oh, it looks like little jail cells. Anyway, that book, the original, that's 500 years old or something, is what he brought out to show our science teacher. And I swear, I've got to start bringing cameramen with me when I do these things, because the reaction, she tries so hard to act like she's not totally blown away, but she is, and she can't hold it in. Love that. Yeah, some of you are trying really hard not to do that right now, which is fine. And the masks make it even easier, but I know you're doing it. It's good. So our teacher in residence program, not only is information about the opportunity available, but information about what our teachers have done, and links to all their blog posts and links to things they've found. And we're really building a terrific community of educators that are helping the library do the work of connecting to all Americans by way of the classroom. We also support the library's Literacy Awards program. And next Thursday, we are going to be issuing a press release that announces this year's Literacy Award winners and honorees. This program has been going on for 10 years, and in those 10 years, the library has recognized almost 150 different organizations around the world that are doing incredible work in terms of helping people learn to read and to write and to express themselves. I encourage you to check out our Literacy Awards website, because a couple years ago we added a new addition to it. We added this interactive map. So you can go on the map and you can click on any one of those little dots around the world and find out about what an organization in that community is doing in terms of affecting literacy in their community or in their region. Some of the strategies that they are employing, again, are so exceptional because they're speaking to the community that they're serving. And that's why when we talk about the winners and the honorees, we describe the honorees as successful practice honorees, because they are finding great success by doing something specific in their community. We also have an amazing network that if you've been down in the exhibit hall, you have bumped into a bunch of these people. So the Library Center for the Book is an organization within the institution that connects with centers for the book across the United States, including now all of the US territories and the District of Columbia. So we actually have a center for the book in the US Virgin Islands, in American Samoa, in Guam, and elsewhere. And that is new this year, and we're really excited. We do have a representative from the Center for the Book in the Northern Marianas downstairs in the exhibit hall in that Roadmap to Reading area. Each one of these partners, the Centers for the Book across the United States, do amazing work with books, with reading, with engagement. And some of them do book festivals. Some of them host essay contests for students. Some of them are involved with their state library and other kinds of programming. Each one of them does it a little bit differently, and each one of them shares ideas with one another through a platform that we support as sort of the conduit and the convener of these groups. And we are really excited to be working with groups across the country for those purposes. So what inspires you to learn? Play here. Remember what you were going to say? The Library of Congress. Okay, what inspires you to learn? Wow, you guys are brilliant. Yes, the Library of Congress inspires you to learn. And I think I've got like 3 minutes. Does anybody have a question? Wow, I've shocked you into silence. Have you learned anything? Are you going to check out anything on the library's website? Excellent. Did you get your feet rested? Awesome. Thank you again for coming. I really do appreciate it, and hope you enjoy the rest of the festival.